Well, nearly 2,000 migrants arrived in the UK in the last week, setting a new record for the year so far. A total of 1,959 people crossed the Channel from France in the week to September the 10th, the highest total for any seven-day period in 2021. It comes as more crossings took place yesterday amid reports of cooler and slightly overcast weather on the south coast with breezy but clear conditions at sea. At least 14,400 people have crossed to the UK on board small boats this year.
Yes, well, joining us in the studio to discuss this is GBNews Home and Security Editor Mark White. Mark, thank you very much for joining us, making your to-the-point debut, of course.
It's great to be here.
What's the latest?
Thank you for having me.
What's going on? Fill us in.
We are rapidly now approaching the point where the number of those who are being taken off these small boats crossing the Channel will be twice that of the year before. So just over 8,000 last year. We're at 14,400 already, more yesterday, and they come daily. And a big sort of change that I noticed last year was even in the winter months, this small boat crisis has really only been a thing the last few years. First year, summer months, it was an issue. When the weather started to deteriorate, you didn't really get any of these boats trying to make the crossing. Last year, we saw right up and over Christmas into January, February, when there were better days, not in storm force conditions, but better days, they were out there. Fully expect the same this year. Weather conditions in the Channel are still on the whole fairly good at the moment, but without a doubt, we're going to be over that, double the figure from last year and some, which is clearly very concerning for the Home Secretary trying to get a grip of this.
And is that an indication of the fact that the people smugglers are getting more sophisticated, the fact that they are now able to successfully bring people across the Channel into the UK, even when it's much cooler? Surely that shows that, you know, that they're really getting sophisticated here.
Yeah, I mean, the people smugglers, these criminal gangs, are nothing if not adaptable. And it's actually a lack of sophistication in a way in which they shove these people onto the boats and across the Channel. It's the flimsiest vessel imaginable. They want to get them out onto the water, into mid-channel, to get picked up by the Border Force or RNLI, because they know then they're effectively under the protection of the British. That's it. They come to the UK and they enter, more than 99% of them, the asylum system.
So this notion that we might start towing some back or using armoured jet skis or whatever they come up, Michael Gove's wave machine, for example, actually in practice, we can't really do any of that stuff because people would die, wouldn't they?
It's going to be enormously difficult. On that, Nigel Farage got some exclusive footage yesterday showing the Border Force actually trying to rehearse those tactics, and we saw 3 jet skis that surrounded a rigid inflatable boat. You can see the footage there, the Border Force cutter in the background, those little jet skis with 2 Border Force officers on them each. The people in that little boat there are actually volunteers, they're not migrants, so they're practicing what their tactics would be, and you can see they want to try and herd, shepherd them back round, turn them round, get them back on shore. But it's going to be a limited tactic in terms of when it can be used. They can only use it on the boats that are just that bit more sturdy, the rigid inflatable types. They can't use it on actually what are the majority of boats coming across, the very flimsy ones that are packed to the gunwales and look as though they're just about to disappear under the water at any time. You do that, you would really have to be a very brave Border Force officer in charge of a vessel who gives that command, because if it all goes wrong, tragically wrong, then clearly they're in trouble, the Home Secretary's in trouble. It will be interesting to see. That footage there, I think, shows, though, that Priti Patel is serious. She does want to give it a go, see if they can do it in at least a limited capacity.
I mean, you know, many people might welcome those tactics there, but some would say it's almost too late by the time they're sort of in the Channel already. You know, talk to us a bit about what are some of the, you know, tools in her toolbox Priti Patel's considering to prevent those boats from coming into the Channel in the first place?
Well, the biggest tool in the box should be the French authorities. Now, they have a duty to protect people themselves. They're talking about this tactic the pushback tactic, if it's adopted, being very dangerous, that people could potentially lose their lives. Well, they also have a duty not to let people out onto the channel in these flimsy boats, putting themselves at risk. So they're getting an additional £54 million from the UK authorities, but quite aside from that, they have that duty of care as well to try to prevent them. And, OK, to be fair to them, it's getting increasingly difficult because the people smugglers are expanding their territories. It's now about 200 kilometres of northwestern France beaches that they're using to push these boats off. But still, you know, the French authorities should be investing more of their own money in that as well, and not just being relying on the UK authorities to give them extra millions to boost their security patrols there as well.
Yeah, I go out most days and do a vox pop just to try and get my finger on the British pulse, as it were, and depending on where you go, of course, you get a variety of different answers. But when it comes to this issue, there's a lot of people, in my opinion, quite a surprising amount of people, who completely write off any kind of security risk in this whatsoever, who just think that once these people get in the channel, they should be welcomed with open arms. Are they right, or is there an element of a security risk when it comes to having these numbers of people coming in?
There's definitely a security risk. I speak to people within policing, security personnel as well, about the concerns that they have. These are, for the very most of those that are coming across, undocumented individuals, because part of their tactic is to throw away their passports so that they can't be sent back to their country of origin. And then there's a very long and complicated process that the authorities here have to embark on to try to find out who indeed these people are. And, OK, if they've been through the system before, if there's fingerprints or DNA that could be in European databases and alike here in the UK on our criminal databases, then they can find out fairly quickly. But if they're not in the system, as many of the people from many countries around the world are not necessarily in these databases, it's very difficult. You don't know what the risk is. And the fact is, there have been cases where people going into other countries have committed some pretty appalling criminal acts. So there is a concern from the security services, from the police, about just how difficult it is to get a handle on who exactly is coming across. It's a very complicated process, and that's why I think as well it takes a very long time to try to return people to their country of origin, to reject them. They reject them, it goes through the courts, it gets appealed, and it can go not just weeks or months, but into years before there's finally a conclusion.